Hi Flosstube, my name is Nitya, and this is my Flosstube channel, Daybreak Stitchery, and I'm here to talk about cross-stitch, my projects I've got going on, and it's been really fun connecting over these past few months with the cross-stitch community via Flosstube and Instagram too. And so I have some things to show you, so we're going to get started. We've got a snowstorm coming today in Chicago, so it's a good day to cozy up and talk cross-stitching and show off some cross-stitch too. So I guess I'm going to start with my WIPs, my works in progress, of which I have only one that I worked on in January. I have so many new projects I started in January. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you this WIP, and we'll go from there. So this looks like this. And it's by Vierlanden Designs, and it's Patchwork, Quakers, the States version. So they have a whole series. Vierlanden has a whole series of Patchwork Quakers, and this is the States version. So all of the threads are in reds and blues. Let me see if I can pull it up, and I'll show you. It's DMC threads, so these different shades of reds and blues. And this is on 25 count Lugana. It's Stormy Night, so you can see it has some kind of a hand-dyed quality to it. I love it. I love Lugana. It's so comfortable to stitch on. And with this project, I've kind of made a pledge just to myself that every time, before I stitch on this, every time I pull it out, I would do some reading from just different voices that make up who we are as the U.S., and eventually, after I stitch all of the motifs on this, I'm also going to stitch in the names of all of the authors whose work I've read too, as a kind of memento of having done it. And I picked this up the day of the invasion of the U.S. Capitol because I'm sure we've all seen it, and it was very upsetting. And I think a lot of creative people, a lot of crafters and artists turned to their crafts and arts to process the emotions of it. It was very scary to watch, very upsetting. And one of the things that bothered me was that they kept using the word protest to describe that event. And I found that upsetting because I always associate protest with positive change, progress, and seeking human rights for people. So I found that very bothersome. And so the book that I picked up to read is one I've actually had from the library for quite some time. I just haven't picked it up. It's History Teaches Us to Resist, and it's by Mary Frances Berry. And I love it. I love what I read from this. It was so inspiring and the perfect thing to read on that day after seeing like that violence and bullying and aggression and terrible things happening. But this is much more uplifting to read. It's like people who protested in a nonviolent way against aggression and violence for something that's actually meaningful. So I recommend it, and I'm linking all of the information about everything, my projects and anything else I share. I'll link it in the description below. But I found out about her from a interview she did on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, so I'll link that video too. She's such an inspiration. She's a college professor, and she's been involved in kind of human rights movements for quite some time. And so this whole book, every chapter talks about a different movement, a different protest movement that has made change in the U.S. So that's a wonderful read, very inspirational, and the perfect thing to help us feel like there is good, that protest is actually something good, and something good can come out of it, not whatever that craziness was that day. You can check my Instagram account because I posted my thoughts. I posted some more information on exactly what I read that day and some more thoughts about that. But anyway, so I'll show again the motifs. This is very pretty. And the thing I like about this Vierlanden Designs, this set of patterns they have, Shiloh at Cross Stitch MD did one of them, and I can't remember which, not States, but it was a different one. A lot of the motifs overlap, like they run into one another. And I find that I like that sort of crowdedness about it, that they're not totally separate. They run into one another. I like that. I've seen this motif that's coming up here. It's going to be two birds together, and then it's kind of ovally pattern. And I've seen that. I think the Linens and Threads Sal from last year had a motif like that too. It's funny when you start recognizing motifs that are used in different patterns. So anyway, Vienberg Designs is that one. So that's my only WIP that I picked up that I had been working on before. Everything else is brand new. So first one I will show you. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything from that first one. Oh, you know what? I do have one other thing to say about WIPs. I didn't stitch on this, but I have some new items that I picked up related to a WIP. I was doing that Swan Lake sampler from OwlForest, the Lebedinia Ozra, and one of the things I wanted to do with that one, it's a I'll put a picture up and I'll link it. It's got ballet dancers all over it who are dancing, and swan motifs related to Swan Lake, the ballet. And I wanted to stitch the bodies of the dancers in brown because I'm eventually giving it to my mom, and we're brown. So I usually stay away from stitching people because I don't know. I want it to kind of look like us, you know, so I'm going to try it. So I had been waiting on some threads from OwlForest to try some brown shades. So I picked up cinnamon, hazelnut, and then salt and pepper for hair. And cinnamon and hazelnut, they're both kind of tan and they're variegated. OwlForest does hand-dyed variegated thread, DMC thread. So they've got sort of like bronzy, tan, beigey tones to them. So I'm going to try that. I'm excited. So I haven't stitched on that Swan Lake sampler, but I will. And I'm even more excited because I had seen it on Instagram. And then I heard about it on the Sunshine Stitchers, who are they're wonderful. I love their Flosstube channel. I just started watching it. They're a fun bunch, and they have really cool projects they're doing. It's EJ, Sheila, and Gary, and they just take turns sharing their WIPs and their new starts and their haul. But they had talked about two hashtags, the diversity and inclusion Sal and the representation matters Sal. And I wasn't sure, I had seen them on Instagram before, but I wasn't sure if you could just stitch anything as long as they kind of were not like non-white, or if there were certain patterns that people were stitching to use those, be able to use those hashtags. And they got back to me. I asked them about it, and they said basically as long as you're stitching browns or any color that's not traditional kind of white of European descent, or if you're doing cultural stitching, then you can use those hashtags. So when I eventually start stitching back on OwlForest with the new skin tones, I will tag it with those. So it'll be nice to contribute to the effort to kind of increase the representation that's shown in our craft. Okay, so that's it for WIPs. I didn't touch a single WIP other than that. So let me show you some new things. I have tons of exciting new things. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show is actually one I'm working on that I made up myself. Well, I mean, so I bought 3 alphabets from Etsy, and they were from Christy Patterns. She has a set of 10 different fonts that you can stitch. And then So Easy Patterns has an alphabet with kind of like serifs on it. And then Lifted Spirit Patterns has a calligraphy alphabet. And so I picked up all 3. They were really affordable patterns on Etsy because I was very inspired by Amanda Gorman's poem at the inauguration. Amanda Gorman is the National Youth Poet Laureate, and she read this beautiful poem called The Hill We Climb at our new president's inauguration. And I love it. I keep listening to it. Every time I can, I just play it. There's so many great lines from that poem. And I wanted to have something to remember it because it was the first time in a long time it really felt like we're coming out of something. We've been under a shadow and we're coming out of it. And I loved the optimism of it. So I took, the poem is called The Hill We Climb. And so I took the lines that are leading up to that, the actual line of the title, and I'll read the excerpt. The lines leading up to it say, see, I have mine. I've been doing some plotting and planning. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promise to glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it. And so I want to stitch that. I had this vision of kind of stitching different fonts mixed together, but stitching those lines of the poem. So I've started it. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie. That line finished will say, won't lie in the blade. And then the rest of it will come down. So it's going to be tiny because this is a 28 count Variegated Tuscan Sun is the color. I'm doing 1/1, and the threads are Silks4u. And I'm loving the Silks4u. I ordered a whole bunch of threads in December, and they're all slowly now starting to come in. And when this one came in, I'll hold it up. It's starting to get a little bit knotted up, but it's blues and that aqua, and it's got purples in there too. It's not going to show up, I think, on my screen, but so it's 3 colors. And I just stared at it for the longest time. It's so, so pretty because there's a gradient from one color to another. So like when it goes from this is blue and purple. It'll be hard for you to see. There's blue here and purple here. But between, there's a whole bunch of shades in between because as it transitions from one color to the other, it creates all these other shades too. So it's actually lots of shades. Same thing happens when it goes from blue to aqua. There's aqua and then there's blue and then there's a whole different set of shades in between, which is the nice part with variegated threads. You get all these extra shades in between. And it reminds me a lot of, I had been doing watercolor last year until right before I started Flosstube. And so one of the things you do when you're doing watercolor is you do these gradient exercises where you have 2 colors. You have 2 little pools of color. So like on this first one, I had started with blue, a pool of blue and a pool of red. And you take the one color. So in this case, I took blue, and you take a drop from the red and add it to the blue and you mix it. And then you paint a little bit with that. And then you take another drop of red and add it to that same blue and you paint with that. So then you keep moving along, but each time you've added a little bit more of the second color until eventually the second color is what dominates. So then you have that gradient in between. And that's exactly what I thought of when I saw these threads. And watercolorists use gradients all the time, like for backgrounds or when they're painting letters, when they're painting calligraphy letters, they'll transition from colors like that too. And that's what this reminded me of. So I took that idea that, I enjoyed the gradient of these variegated threads. And then around the same time, I had also been looking at modern folk embroidery. Jacob, he had done a video about these Fraktur, these old German folk patterns. And he had talked about how much he loves to stitch lettering. And I never really stitched lettering, but that kind of planted in my mind, okay, maybe I should be open to it, especially now that I have a thread that I think would be really pretty for lettering, the gradients stitched in lettering. So all that came together and thought, okay, I've got the threads. I want to try some lettering. So this is going to be the right occasion to do that. So I have a little bit more to do on it. And then the decision I've got to make is, so I just used, I'll show this. I used graph paper. This is just like, what kids use for homework. And I drew lines. This is the first. Let me show you the second ones I did. I split the grid, the lines in half. So I drew more lines to separate each bar in half, both way, horizontally and vertically. And then I used that as my grid. So I was planning out, I was plotting out those letter alphabets that I bought. I kind of picked different fonts and patterns and I laid out the message. So, and then I want to stitch her name on it, of course. So the next decision I've got to make is whether I want to, because this is basically the width of it. It's not going to go any wider than this. I've lined up everything, the whole message so that it comes down like this. And I have a lot of fabric left. So I'm trying to decide if I will just have it be a small piece like this, which I think I want to have something finished in 2021. So I think I'll probably do that. But the other idea is to take more lines. It's a long poem, so I could take more lines from it and do more with it. I'm just not sure. I'm going to try to get to the end of what I've plotted out, that end of that quote, and then maybe I'll see how it looks. I'm also thinking of maybe adding like a border along the side or some little leaf patterns, something like that. So it's fun. This is the first time I've kind of designed something. I didn't design the alphabets. I bought the alphabets, but the layout and everything, I took a day to work on it. And it's planned over, like multiple pages. So So it took some thought to lay it out. And I'm enjoying it. And I have been kind of paying attention to the variegation, the gradients. So I don't know how, I'd be curious to hear how others do it when you stitch with variegated thread. So there's some projects for which I just don't really care. I just kind of stitch and then whatever color comes up. This one I've been kind of thoughtful about it. So for example, if I finish in like a purple color, if I finish a thread and need to start a new thread, I'll cut a thread from the hank that has a little bit of purple left and then transitions to the next color. So that way it won't be, I didn't want to have abrupt changes. Like, okay, now I've done purple, now straight away I'm going to start with aqua. I wanted to gradually finish off that purple and have a few stitches include those gradient colors and then transition to the next one. So everything looks pretty blended. There are no abrupt changes. It's not going to show super great here on the video, but it's not, there are different shades happening between each solid color. I've tried to retain all those gradient shades in there. So I'm loving it. Who knew letters could be so fun? Now I feel like I could stitch lots more letters on that. So that's been a really fun one and potential finish. So that's going to be good. I'm enjoying that one. Okay. I did actually have a start and finish, but it's super teeny. It's this one here. It's this little squirrel. And this is by Gazette94, who is a French cross-stitch designer. And she had shared a whole bunch of patterns, and they're still there. I'll link it. There's a blog full of free patterns. And it looks like the blog closed in December of 2020, but you can still find all of her patterns there. And this comes from Quaker 2010, and I really like it. It's PR. Hang on a sec. Let me tell you which PR it is. PR 68. It's PR 68, which is brown and red. And again, I was a bit intentional about how I use the variegation because I thought it would be nice on this because it's mostly two colors. It would kind of look like part of the squirrel is like in shadow and part of it is in sun, part of it is in light and part in shadow. If I let some parts be darker and some parts be lighter. And I've done this on a gingham fabric. Do you see it's kind of yellow and brown gingham? And I don't have any information about it because it came in a grab bag of fabrics from 123 Stitch. And right away when I saw it, I thought, oh, it's kind of like a I don't know, it feels sort of woodsy or naturey. So I did this little squirrel on there. The Gazette 94 Quaker 2010 pattern is actually, it's got a lot of pretty woodland motifs, Quaker woodland motifs. But I've only done one because this is going to be the first item that I want to put in a cross-stitch journal that I'm starting. And I've seen a few other people do it, but the one that I really like is by Michelle, from Michelle Bendy Stitchy, who's a Flosstuber, and I love her journal. It's so beautiful. And she's done like lots of tiny little things like this. She's doing a series from Etsy now called Quirky Quaker Animals, I think, or Quirky Animals, something like that. But it's kind of similar to this, where it's like animals with like a little Quaker motif around it. And she puts them in a journal. And then if she gets paper patterns, she'll rip off like the title or like part of the design and kind of put that in the journal too. And then my idea for my journal is to have little stitches and then also do some watercolor in there. And then I also have a lot of these like washi tapes, the rice paper tapes that are decorative. So kind of layer those in there too. So I'm going to make my own. I've seen people buy spiral bound journals and then put their things in there, but they become very thick because of all the fabric that's in it. So I'm going to make my own. I think I'm going to use recycled like packaging, cardboard boxes from like food containers and stuff. And then I'm going to cut them all to the same size, maybe 5 by 7. And I have these ring clasps for like groups of index cards, you know. And I'll make my own, I think. That's my idea. Who knows if I'll actually follow through with it, but that's kind of the idea I had for that one. This looks like, if I had to guess, I think it's either 32 or 36 count, and I did it 1/1 with that PR68 from Silks4u. That PR68 is beautiful. It's got the darkest brown and then kind of a brighter red, as you can see. I can't wait to do something. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Some kind of Quaker should go with that because it's really beautiful. There is a Flosstuber named Christopher from Skognitz. I'll link his Flosstube channel below and his Instagram. Cherry Sparkles, I think is his Instagram name. But he's mostly a quilter, but he does have some cross stitch too. And he had a beautiful finish from Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, who I've looked at those designs before. They're very cute. They're all super cute patterns. They're that Japanese kawaii style. Kawaii is the Japanese word for cute or charming or adorable, and it's a very easily distinguishable style because they'll take like a piece of pie or something, and then they'll put a face on it where the eyes are very set far apart. They're kind of beady eyes and far apart, and then there'll be a cute little smile on it. So all of their motifs have that. So now I wouldn't stitch something like that normally, although Christopher did a beautiful, I think he did the Animal Almanac pattern from there, and it's so gorgeous. And so I would reconsider doing cutesy stuff, but I was thinking those would be good for a cross stitch journal. Just quick little motifs to put in with bright colors. So that could be a potential. I've been wanting to look for an excuse to do something with them, but those patterns don't really go with the style of our home. So the journal, I think, would be a good idea. Okay, so next new start is a stitch along by Modern Folk Embroidery. I know lots of people are doing this one. It's the January piece of the MFE Sal 2021. What's the hashtag? MFE Sal 2021, the Modern Folk Embroidery 2021 stitch along. And I'm doing this on 25 count Lugana. It's Ash Rose. And I love Lugana. It's so soft. It's just so drapey and soft. It's really nice to stitch on. It's using two colors. He's got on the pattern, you can do either a monochrome or two color. And a lot of people are adding additional colors too. If you search the hashtag in Instagram, there's so many cool combos, beautiful, beautiful patterns people are doing with this, or color combos. And so I chose two sulky colors. Let me see if I can pull them up and I'll show you here. You're in this bag, but with the light, I don't think they'll show up. One is Sulky 1287, and it's French green. And then the other one is Sulky 1240, and that's Smoky Gray. And Smoky Gray is my favorite because in certain lights, it has purple tinges to it. So it looks kind of purpley too. And let me tell you, this feels like an accomplishment. It was challenging to do this one. I don't know why. Maybe because I was pushing, because I don't usually do big chunks like this all in 1 month. So it was a lot to do in 1 month, maybe. I started it on January 1st and I finished it on January 15th, and I stitched on it pretty much every day. Also, because of this negative stitching down here, I think it's just it is a lot of stitches. So I'm just saying it felt like an accomplishment when I finished this one. And I have a little bit of worry's too strong. I'm just thinking, I don't know if I can keep up with it every month, but I'd really like to try. It would feel like a feat if I was able to keep up with this every month. I have this cute little needle minder from OwlForest too. It has little berries on it. This is called Fruits of Plenty. And so I thought that little needle minder would be cute too. It's beautiful, right? I mean, and everybody's looks beautiful. If you search the MFE Sale 2021, if you search it on Instagram, you see so many beautiful, everyone's going to create something amazing with this, I think. I pushed myself to finish this because finishing the January installment of this was part of my WIPGO challenge. So I said I was going to start with WIPGO, which is sort of like a works in progress bingo. So technically, I guess it probably shouldn't have new starts on it, but whatever. So I don't know if this will show up. So you lay out 25 days and then you put down a cross stitch challenge, not 25 days, 25 spaces. And you put down a cross stitch challenge for each one. And then it is Jessie Marie Does Stuff. She's the one who coordinates it. I'll link her info below. But she calls out 2 numbers a month. And then you try to do the 2 things that are listed there. For January, she called out 3. And one of them was the free space in the middle. But I actually put something there. So I tried to do the thing for it. And of the 3 numbers she called, 6, 13, and 18, I did 2 of the things. And one of the things was to finish the MFE Sal 2021 installment. And then the other one was to do 50 stitches on each of the 3 stitch-alongs, the 3 sals that I signed up to do, which I did too. The third one that she called that I didn't do, I had set myself the goal of stitching 15 motifs on my Autumn Quakers by Rosewood Manor. I didn't get to it. I had too many other exciting things to do. So that's okay. I did feel like this was good. It did push me to try to accomplish something. Otherwise, I would probably every evening when I can stitch. Some evenings I'm just too tired, but I would just kind of grab a random whatever I felt like it, and then which is fine. But it also would take longer to get some progress made, I think. If I'm like every day of the month, I'm choosing a different thing to stitch on. So it actually felt like I could accomplish something with that. The new numbers were called for WIPGO. What were they? I wrote them down. 20 and 4. So for me, that's going to be number 4. I have down, I'm going to stitch for 5 days on my Forests of Sumatra. And then for number 20, I'm going to stitch for 5 days on my Narnia pattern from Jan Hicks. So that's kind of exciting to think about. I didn't plan on stitching those in February, but now it kind of feels like, oh, good, I'll make some progress on those 2. And then I do feel like there's still time to do other things. Besides, it didn't take up the whole month for me to do the 2, to reach my 2 goals. So I think I'm going to try to keep up with WIPGO and just see what happens. We'll see. Okay, let me make sure. Did I have anything else? I took so many notes for today because I've been working so much and I haven't had time to think about everything I want to say to you all. Okay, so the next one is on my list. I had a list of about 27 new projects I wanted to start between October when I started, when I joined Flosstube, and then December of 2021. So this is one of them. This is Étude by Lena cross stitch. And it's going to be a grid full of tiny square motifs all over it. It's using DMC. This is 32 count lilac Belfast linen. I don't know, maybe if I move back, you won't see the lilac-y color. This was clearance linen that I picked up from 123 Stitch. And these are all DMC colors. Unfortunately, after I finish this little green square, I'm going to have to quit for a little bit because I don't have most of the DMC colors. I don't have the DMC colors for the boxes that are supposed to come around. And I've been keeping a list. In December, I ordered a whole bunch of different threads. I have Mrs. Sadis coming. I got a whole bunch of Silks4u, and then threads from OwlForest, and some DNC too. So I've been telling myself, you got to start using up some of this stuff before you can buy new. So if I have a project that needs thread, I'm just putting it on hold and working on other things until I'm ready to place a big order. But I'm keeping track in my little notebook of all the DMCs that I need. And this whole list here is for Étude. I'm missing a lot of colors. I have some. I've crossed out the ones I have, but I'm missing quite a few. And I'm definitely missing the ones that go next here. So I'm going to have to hold off on it. This I had heard about on Shiloh Cross Stitch MD's channel. She did a beautiful one. It's on a different color fabric. I don't remember, but it turned out so lovely. And then she mentioned someone on Instagram named Rine, and his username is RyMcGuy, and he did an incredible version of this. It's on like a shadowy green fabric, and he changed the color of the threads. They're all like green, mint greens and deeper greens and pinks. It's really beautiful. I'll link both of their Instagram names below, and you can check them out. But they're so pretty. I'm just using whatever the pattern calls for, and I think it'll be nice. I'm excited about it. It's really easy. You can probably, I think I've finished like a square in an evening. I only get about an hour really to focus and stitch. So It's good. It's a good, quick, it feels like you did something. Let me make sure I didn't want to mention anything else. Okay. Next one is another new start from my list that I put together a list of, I think it was 27 projects. I mean, now it's more, 27 projects that I wanted to start this year. And so I received some of my stuff from OwlForest that I had been waiting on. So I was able to start a couple things from them. And this is, I'm loving this. Closer to. This is Bluebirds of Happiness by OwlForest. I got their little needle minder too. And I'm using their variegated threads. They have their own, they have DMC conversions on their patterns. And I am doing one of their, I think it's Autumn Flowers I'm doing with DMC. But after I got the Swan Lake sampler, and that came with their variegated threads, I've just been ordering their threads for everything. I don't order their fabric, but I order their threads, and I love it so much. It's DMC, but it's very slippery and slick. It feels smooth, so I really enjoy stitching on that. And I have one more OwlForest one. This was on 37 count. Corn tassel is the color. It's a pale yellow, almost white. And it's by Access Commodities. And I'm doing 2/2 on that. And then this one too, isn't this so cute? This is Pomegranate Quakers, also by OwlForest, and I'm using their variegated threads again. They're just beautiful. Their threads are so beautiful. And on this one, I am not really paying super close attention to the variegation. I'm just letting it go. I'm kind of doing what I had said with the Amanda Gorman poem, The Hill We Climb, where if I end one color and I'm ready to rethread, I try to continue that a little bit and then flow into the next one so there's not abrupt changes. So I guess I'm keeping track of it that way. But I'm not, making certain motifs, certain colors or anything, certain parts of the motif, certain colors or anything like that. I love this. I'm getting real close to the edge, as you can see. I'm not super worried about it. I'm going to snip it and then I'll mat it on some papers before I frame it. I think it'll be fine. I'm not panicking about how close that is to the edge. This is on 40 count anthracite. Is it a Belfast? I don't remember what kind of I don't remember what kind of linen it is, but the color is anthracite. And when I had first gotten this fabric, I thought, ooh, it's gray. It's basically gray. It's a medium gray. And 40 count, I'm doing 2/2. And I had like a corally pink DMC color that I just thought, let me stitch a few things in here and see what it looked like. And it looked beautiful. So I knew I wanted to do something pink on this, pinky or red. So when this came, I thought, I'm going to make it fit on this. Even though, yes, I'm cutting it close. That's been a really nice, every motif on this gives me joy, basically. Like, look at those little guys. It's very pretty. And I would get this anthracite again. It's nice to stitch on, whatever linen that was. Okay, next one. I've got a couple sals to show. First one looks like this. It's the Bookcase sale, which I think lots of people are joining in on this one. It's the hashtag for it is New Year Bookcase Sal, and it's hosted by Shiloh at Cross Stitch MD and the Desert Stitcher, who's Beth, I think, the Desert Stitcher, and they're kind of co-hosting this one. The pattern is by Galliana Designs, who has beautiful, beautiful sampler patterns. Let me fold this up a little bit and I'll show you a little bit closer. Isn't that lovely? So the pattern is kind of a decorative bookcase, and then it's got books all along the inside, and it's got like a plant and a picture frame and different things too. So I got very impatient and I just went ahead and started this. So I had threads I had originally planned, and then I did not use them because they had not arrived in time. So I used what I had, which was for the bookcase, I'm using Sulky 4011, Sulky 4011, which is milk chocolate. And I love it. I love it so much. Look at it. See all the different colors in it? It goes from pink to beige to like golden brown to dark brown. So it's got all those different shades in it. And I know wood doesn't naturally have all those shades in it, but all of those shades separately are kind of woodsy. So I just said, let's go with it. We're going to go with that. And I just love it. And for this one, I'm not being intentional about the variegation. I'm just going with it. Like I did this whole stretch here I did the other night, and I was just going up and down. It's like five or six stitches up and down. And I went with it, and whatever color came is what color came. And then when I ended with it, I just picked up with whatever I had. So I wasn't paying attention. The books, you can see I've kind of started with 2 of the books that are laying down. They're all really pretty like this. They're pretty spines. And, for that, I'm using Silks4u. They had a sale back in December, so I got a bunch of stuff from them. So they had these mixed bags you could order, and you don't get information on what the mini skeins are in there. They just send a whole bunch of different ones. And there was a really nice note on the website that said, if you order multiple grab bags, we'll try to put different colors in each one. So I had ordered 3, I think. And so many beautiful colors came in that bag. So I picked out greens and purples. I don't know if you'll be able to. I'm going to pull these out so you can see them. Just different greens and purples, and those are going to be for the books. And then I'm sticking with that milk chocolate for the frame. And I really enjoy this one. This is a very cozy stitch, I feel like. It's very pleasing because there are a lot of decorative elements. Like, look at is it called like a spinel maybe? I don't remember what that's called. That feature is called on furniture. There's just a lot of tiny decorative elements like that are going to be really, and even the spines of the books, see how they each have kind of a decorative pattern. So you right away, just after doing a little block, you have something very pleasing to look at. This is on Access Commodities. It's 37 count, and the color is Wild Honey. So it won't show on the screen, but it's like a pinky beige, a pale pinky beige color. So I'm loving it. This is really nice. The Access Commodities fabrics are actually really nice to stitch on. And I enjoy the higher counts, like 40 count, like this Quaker Pomegranates is on 40 count. I really like it. I like the daintiness of the stitches. And this 37 count is pretty good too. I like 36, all the way to 36 count. The next one I'm doing is on 32 count, which is one of my least favorite counts to stitch on, but it's working out with this one because I'm using 3 threads on it. So this is the Quiltify Sal. So this is from Benjamin from Quiltify Designs on Etsy. And he's doing a Vierlanden Sal stitch along for 2021. And this is a very generous pattern that he's doing, because basically if you do the whole thing, it's an enormous Vierlanden. It has like these bouquet motifs and these round medallions. And every month he's basically sharing 3 full medallions and then 3 half medallions and then more. There's like borders and crowns and different things. There are a lot of motifs that you get each month, and you can pick and choose. So I chose a smaller fabric. This is from a company that I don't purchase for anymore, so I don't really talk about them, or I don't purchase from them anymore. It's a mocha colored, and I'm using DMC 4514 as the variegated one. I think this might be that Paris color. I have to look that up, but it's got purples and blues in it. And I'm using a solid color. This is DMC 3768. And I like what he's done with it, because you can either stitch the whole thing, or you can choose which motifs you want to do. So I'm using a smaller fabric, and I won't stitch the whole thing. I'll just stitch bits of it. And the other thing I'm playing around with doing is I'm playing around with taking some of the medallions and overlapping them maybe. So like, for example, I'm going to do just 1 or 2 of these big medallions with the multicolor variegated. And then I'm going to have most of the smaller ones be these solid colors. I also have a purple shade, like this bright purple shade that's in this. I have that too. I might do something where I stitch a medallion between so that it looks like it's behind these. I've been wanting to play around with that as an idea. I don't know if it'll look too busy. It might look too busy. I'm going to think about it. But I'm enjoying this. Now, the only reason why this is working out for me is because it is 32 count, which for me, I don't like 2 threads over 32 count. It's not, you can see the fabric behind it. So I'm using 3. So I'm doing 3 over 2 on this. So it's a very kind of thick pattern. It's that kind of thick, but I like it. It's working out. I'm going to keep it going. The coverage is excellent with 3. You don't see any fabric poking through that. So that is Quiltify design. He just edited, for any of you who use Pattern. I don't use Pattern Keeper. I just use like PDF files. But he made them Pattern Keeper friendly in case any of you use those. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh, he issues the patterns like in 3 colorways. There's like a red one. No, not 3 colorways. They're actually distinct designs. So there's like a red patterns, blue patterns, and green, and they're different. So you're getting a lot of motifs each month. I find that to be I think it's very generous. It's unlike, I'm excited to do the linens and threads stitch along too. I'm doing it, but the January installment of that was just line borders. And that's not very exciting to do. The actual motifs I think will start next month in just a couple days. So one of my WIPGO goals was to do 50 stitches on all 3 of the sals I'm doing. So I did like 50 stitches of a border. It was just a line basically. But that's not exciting. You know what I mean? So you open up the files for the Quiltify design, that's exciting because you've got all these motifs and you're thinking, oh, what can I choose? Makes you feel like you have, something to do. Okay, last one is a surprise start, unexpected. I found a little bit about this designer on Instagram, and then I looked up some patterns. So this is dear Rine Borduren, who is a Dutch cross-stitch designer, and she does a free sal every year. So this is actually a 2020 sal, which I signed up to do and then just didn't start it till 2021. So this is called Vlektwerk, which is Dutch for like woven work or like wicker weaving, because it's going to be woven ribbons. So see how this brown, think of it as like a ribbon that's going to stretch across, and the pinkish ribbons will stretch vertically. So it's woven bands, and each part of the band that shows has a different motif on it. I'm loving this. This is so nice. I was stitching on this morning. And the reason why, well, first of all, I like the pattern. Second of all, it's on Congress cloth. It's 24 count Congress cloth, which is technically a needlepoint, like a mesh. It is fabric, but it's very stiff mesh for needlework. It's really easy to cross stitch on because basically, like, I stitch in hand. So I usually have to have my fingers hold the fabric apart and constantly create tension to be able to stitch on. This has its own tension all by its own. You don't have to stretch it. It's stiff. So you just whip up the stitches really fast. You don't have to constantly adjust your hands to increase the tension or adjust the tension. I don't use hoops or Q-snaps or anything. I just stitch in hand. So it's very, very easy to stitch on. I'm using 2 sulkies here, and I don't think I wrote down the colors, did I? I didn't. One is like a pinky brown blend, and one is solid. I think it's dark chestnut, maybe. I don't remember the number, though. But I feel like it's enough of a contrast where, there you go, you can see. You can make everything out. You can make the patterns out. So I have used Congress cloth before. In my first Flosstube video, I had done a Saju pattern in green and yellow DMC, two strands of DMC. That was on a Congress cloth too. Who does it? I think it's Vikelt. Maybe. No, it's Zweigert. I think it's Zweigert who makes these Congress cloths. And there's a whole array of shades available. I mean, I have these like pale ones, but they have some brighter colors too. So I recommend trying to stitch on one of these, and I'm curious to see what people think about it. I really enjoy it. And now I was worried about like the gaps in the fabric, but it's not a problem. It looks fine. If you mat it on something that's the same color, I think it'll be fine. Well, that's all I got. that's a lot going on already. So I think we're all pretty excited about February just being a couple days away because we'll get new projects to do. So I will touch base again in a few weeks. And until then, happy stitching, everybody. Thanks for watching if you're watching.